The whole hustle culture thing, it's basically glorifying overworking yourself and going above and beyond the norm. People bragging about how much they worked, I'm sure you've seen it. However, recently I have seen more and more people talking about how unnecessary it all is, and how that there is nothing wrong with not partaking in this. I don't want to say these guys are advocating for the bare minimum, because they're not. A standard 9 to 5 is far from the bare minimum, but it's certainly a lot less than what you see online. And if you're a regular of mine, you know that a standard 9 to 5 is far below what I'm doing, but there is nothing wrong with this. The hustle cult online will tell you that you can't be successful unless you grind hard, but that depends on your definition of success. Their definition is usually a giant mansion with private jets. I could not care less about any of this. A private jet would be more convenient to get places quicker, but I have no desire to constantly be traveling and on the move. Unless I was some massive public figure doing guest speeches around the world, I'd never have the need or the want for a private jet. You can live a nice life without having to start a business and work 80 hours a week between your job and a side hustle. But then, why do I do what I do? I have my own reasons, which I will talk about in another video. I was going to tack it onto the end of this video, but that's going to draw out the video length of this far too long. So in this video, I'll be spitballing a bunch of different viewpoints on the whole hustle culture thing. I'll compare 6 different people's schedules in their 20s, and then compare where they can expect to be when they're at 35, following said schedule. You young bloods may not care about what you're doing when you're 35, but trust me, your mid-20s creeps up on you, and when you get to this age, you realize how important your 30s and beyond are going to be. The saying, your late teens/early 20s are the best years of your life, only apply to the partygoers. I assure you, life gets better as you go on if you're working towards something. Before we continue, I am also going to overlay some posts from Reddit regarding this hustle culture thing. I was going to react to them and give my 5 cents on the topic, but again, it would extend the video too long. So I'll just overlay them, as it'll let you know there are plenty of others out there who don't subscribe to the hustle culture narrative. Maybe I'll react to them in a separate video, but for this one, I won't provide audio commentary on it. Maybe I'll type in my thoughts, but that's it. So anyway, as you can imagine if you're a regular viewer, I work a lot, compared to the normal person anyway. I have quite a few avenues in my life which I treat as a video game, hence the brand name gamification of life. I don't just work a regular job, maybe go to the gym and call it a day. There's a lot to my game of life. A standard life likely involves a 9 to 5 job of some sort. Maybe you're only working part-time. Most people don't actually exercise regularly. Maybe they have a gym membership they use here and there, or maybe they go for runs, bike rides, whatever, as their form of exercise. You then have an entire spare weekend to do whatever you want. And once you clock off work, you also do whatever you want. Whether that be playing video games, socializing, watching streaming platforms, etc. Alongside this, maybe you're fortunate enough to have your own place. Maybe you're renting, but either way, I'm going to use a blanket assumption of you work a 9 to 5, don't gym, and pay rent. This seems to be quite the standard life from what I've seen. At least it's very common here in my region in Australia. I've mentioned this before, but we have especially unaffordable housing here. Some parts of the US, Canada, and the UK are just as bad, but 5 out of our 8 capital cities are in the top 20 most unaffordable housing areas in the world. I just need to emphasize that fact. If you are paying off your own place, you're either a real hustler, you don't live in Australia, or maybe it's a combination of both. This housing comment will come to play later in this video. So let's just say, this is the standard weekly schedule for your average person. They work during the week, maybe add in some commute time, but for the most part, this is their schedule. Yellow cells are semi-productive. Like, you do these in order to set up something else productive, if that makes sense. Commuting to work isn't technically productive stuff, but it's required to get something productive done. Commuting home from work isn't productive, but it's a byproduct of being productive, aka showing up to work. Blue cells are formally productive things. and grey cells aren't productive. Any activity in this time won't positively impact your future. So, as you can see, for your average person, there is quite a lot of, quote, unproductive time. They live a pretty chill life. To be honest, this doesn't seem too bad. So much time to do whatever here. It's great. And this isn't super far-fetched either. Yeah, some careers can require some overtime, but I imagine you get paid for this. Or at least you're doing that unpaid overtime for promotions later on in life, which bumps up your money, giving you more resources to enjoy your time off with. Example, having a nice expensive weekend away here and there because you've worked some extra hours than the standard, and thus you can afford it. Is there anything wrong with this schedule? No. In fact, many people think this schedule is full on. Like a 40-hour work week is absurd. Think of that meme with Henry Ford. It's an image of him, and the caption is, "This is the man who invented the 5-day work week," or whatever. And the next caption on the meme is, "Everyone boo this man." Long story short, Henry Ford cut the work week from 6 to 5 days to make his business more attractive to top talent, which makes his business better. And I believe another flow-on idea of this was to force other businesses to have a 5-day work week instead of 6, meaning more people had more time off to enjoy themselves and would likely have more trips away, thus requiring a car, thus more demand for Fords. There's more to the story than that, but that's the gist of it. But just think, the common consensus seems to be working 5 days a week is too much. So even this pretty mild schedule seems like too much for some people. This will tie into a future video I'm going to make called "The Competition is Weak," and it's kind of hypocritical to this video, but we'll get to it when we get to it. Like, it'll be kind of the opposite of this video in a way. I'll mention how the slight extra work you do for yourself each week still sets you way apart from most people, but I'll touch on that when I get to that specific video. Point is, there's nothing wrong with this schedule, despite how mild it may seem, and even then, this is a hectic schedule for many. You can get by just fine with this schedule. Let's spice this up. Let's say they're into fitness, which most of my viewers are. Let's chuck in 5 gym sessions a week. Even this may be a little much. Some go 3 to 4 days, some go 6, but let's just use 5 as an example. I'll disregard commuting to the gym as it'll overcomplicate the chart, and most people's gyms aren't too out of their way. For me, it's a slight detour, but that's not important for this example. Now we've got more blue cells. Maybe you work out in the morning, maybe you work out both weekend days and have another spare day off during the week, but the point is you're more productive overall, and the more blue cells you have, the more your life is improved down the track. The extra exercise builds muscles, which takes away stress on your joints, tendons, ligaments, and stretches your fascia, so you have less overall pain later in life. Unless you're a permabulk powerlifter, your waistline is likely smaller than the average as a result of this, which in itself has a lot more overall health benefits than having a larger waist. Plenty of science to back this claim up. So even this schedule may seem hectic for others, but this is a more common one amongst the more, quote, productive people I've seen. Nothing wrong with this schedule either. You have a good income stream and you're fit, which puts you way ahead of majority of the population. Quick comparison, in 10 years from now, person 1 has their own place, regardless of whether they're renting or they own it, and so does person 2. But person 2 is fit and has no major health conditions, whereas person 1 is starting to feel the negative consequences of their inactivity over the years. They're unhealthy, unaesthetic, their joints hurt, they have constant doctor's appointments and medical bills because they put $0 of investment into their health earlier on, and 0 time, and they're paying for it now. A gym membership and several hours of your week can save you exponentially later in life. So both people are living their best lives. They get a good amount of free time to themselves, but one person was more productive earlier on, and thus is having a greater overall quality of life later on. Let's throw in example 3, someone who is studying to enhance their career. As you can see, more blue cells again, meaning more productive time each week. I've thrown in random study sessions. Maybe you can study more, maybe you study less. The point is, there is less literally whatever time, still some free time, an hour to unwind each night, Saturday night's free, and most of your Sundays free. This won't last forever. Eventually you'll be done with study, but let's imagine it takes 3 to 5 years, for example. In 10 years, person 3 is earning more than the other two since they put an upfront investment in time and money into enhancing their earning capacity, which is essentially the crux of these 3 videos here. Now, maybe they can afford a more lavish getaway than the other two, or maybe they can afford an investment property with their newfound income, which generates them more income to have a more comfortable life going forward. Person 3 had a more hectic schedule for a few years, but later in life, this has allowed them to have more income/investments than person 2, but both person 3 and person 2 are healthier than person 1. Let's move on to person 4. Now we're getting hectic. This person does what person 3 does, but now they're also working a second job. They work part-time or casually at some other gig. Maybe you're a bartender, so this is a night shift, I don't know. For this example though, we're just using 4 to 5 hours on the weekend. A lot more blue in this chart, but still a decent amount of chill time. Maybe you pull the study and gym back a few hours so you can go out on a Saturday night. Whatever, I don't know. This is just hypotheticals after all. But this person is earning more than the other 3 examples. But they're also still studying like person 3, meaning they'll eventually generate more per hour, rather than having to work more hours in the week just to make up that difference. There are only so many hours in the week, 168 in fact. You can't work 170 hours in a week, so your most efficient bet is to make more per hour, not work more hours. However, the time value of money is a critical factor many don't consider. $1 today is worth a lot more than $1 10 years from now. So although studying now and having a learning season, rather than an earning season early, is the best move, the time value of money makes an argument for having earning seasons earlier in life, since the value of money gets eroded away due to inflation. But why not have a nice balance of both? Recently, I received a job offer that pays $88,400 as a package, which is more than $20,000 more than my current role. Between both jobs, that would put me on $118,400 a year at least. And that's assuming I don't work extras or take leave from either job, which won't happen, so it's more like $120,000, especially when you factor in stuff like my staff discounts. This isn't a lot if you live in New York, but here in my rural region of Australia, this is an enormous amount. But I turned it down as it would make studying my CPA difficult, amongst my other stat increases too. It would make all of them a little bit more tricky. This is a move for the learning season, but without this, I'm still on around 6 figures, so it's not like I'm on chump change by any means. I'm doing both learnings and earnings. I'm just skewing myself more towards learnings rather than earnings for now. So, with this extra income, they have a larger savings account. Maybe they have the other investment property like person 3, but maybe their property is worth more. I'll touch on this later in the video, but long story short, my family members were looking at 2 small units in a more shit suburb around my area. With the cost of my current land and what I estimate the house will be, I could afford both of these small units. It'll cost me around $625,000 for my land and my house, 4-bedroom, 388 square meters, which is one of the larger lots you can get in this particular nice area. You can get acreage where I live, but not where I'm buying, which is much closer to society, and it's also a very nice area. Close to the city, close-ish to the beach, not in the middle of nowhere where I currently live. Meanwhile, the units were around $280,000 each in the shitty area, and each unit had maybe 1 to 2 bedrooms. So together these 2 units were about $560,000 for 2 properties versus the $625,000 for the 1 property I have. Sometimes it's about quality over quantity. The value of my land has already gone up $100,000 in 14 months, but I digress. Point is, more than likely, the person working 2 jobs is in a much better financial situation than person 3, 2, and 1. Person 5, same overall schedule, but this person listens to trends in the stock market and dabbles in it with their extra income on the side. There are no designated time slots for the stock market here, but instead of listening to music and chilling out while working, driving, cooking, they're learning. This isn't exactly relaxing since it's mentally stimulating, but slowly and surely this will teach person 5 more financial literacy. In 10 years, person 5 is in the same situation as person 4, but they can make better investments and magnify whatever money they have from work/rental income/their second job, whatever. The extra time they spent over the years learning the financial markets is now ingrained into their mind, and it allows them to have a quote, easier life. Since they know when to buy stocks, when to short stocks, what stocks to avoid, what to look at, etc. Also, learning the whole macroeconomy helps you make more financially literate decisions in general, regardless of whether it's related to the stock market or not. Now, person 6. This person does everything person 5 does, but now chuck in a business/brand/side hustle. Add in some extra hours of work at a second job for good measure. And here we go. This particular person has bugger all free time. Obviously, they still attend social events, but this comes at the expense of a scheduled gym session, study session, time for their business, etc. This schedule looks stupid to some. Why don't you relax, chill out, working unnecessarily hard? You're promoting the toxic hustle culture, brah. You're going to burn out. Well, yes, but actually no. In case you're a newer viewer, this example is me, myself. This is roughly what my schedule looks like. Things like study/brand swap around here and there, and obviously not every minute is set in stone. Maybe some days I have more study/brand work than usual, but the overall picture is there is a lot of work involved. Now, I enjoy working on this brand. I enjoy my second job. To me, it's a borderline social event. So many friends there I get along with. We have fun, we talk shit, we get paid for it. Easy peasy. I enjoy study, just chuck on some music and pot away. But study is mandatory for me anyway. If I want 6 figures, I need my CPA. I enjoy gym, and I enjoy my office job. So maybe this schedule looks unrealistic for you if you hate your main job, and you hate the idea of working a second job, and you get too bored of the stock market, and you aren't passionate about your own brand/business, and you only gym for health, you don't actually enjoy it, and you're content with a lower salary so you don't study, that's fine. But there's incentives and consequences to both sides of this. Let's use a 10-year example, wrapping up all 6 of these people. Since I know most of you fellas like impressing the ladies, let's use some examples when you're at the age of 35 when a girl is talking about you. A recent video from Denmo touched on this, and I used some of that clip in this video here, but we're going to just use blanket assumptions here. You can say, oh, she loves me for who I am. If you found someone like that, that's awesome. Happy for you. But the fact is, in most cases, you need some bait to attract women. I mean, isn't it the same for men? I'd be much happier with a nurse that works out than some unemployed chick who doesn't work out, hey? And don't worry, all of you Sigmas out there, I'll do an example for you thinking about yourself after we go over this section on women. So person 1, at least he has a good job. Nothing wrong with being this person whatsoever. But note the lack of overall stats. The lack of the straight 7 system, as First Man has said, and so is men's maxing. Basically, a good job, that's all. Again, I see many women out there in my area with guys such as this. Their man has a good stable income but doesn't work out. It's great for them as they get time to hang out with their man after work and go out on weekends. Wonderful life for them. But the problem arises if they split. Like, yeah, you have memories and whatnot, but essentially all of this time has just been wasted. In my opinion, of course. You could look at it from the viewpoint of hanging out with your friends, but I imagine you hang out with your significant other way more than you hang out with your friends. But anyway, this is purely subjective. If you find spending heaps of time with your significant other is way better than, like, working on a side hustle, for example, then that's entirely your choice. There's no right or wrong here. I'm just providing different perspectives. Person 2, same as person 1, but maybe they're a fit couple. This is less common from what I've seen than person 1, but it's still kind of rare, at least in my area. Person 3 is the same as person 2, but with a more promising promotion prospect. Hey, check out that alliteration. So I'd argue person 3 is more desirable than person 1 and 2. And at the age of 35, they appear more successful than the others, given that their schedule in their 20s was more bland and empty than the other 2. As in, their schedule of free time was more bland and empty than the other 2. Person 4 is the same as person 3, but with more income, as they work casually on weekends here and there for extra spare dosh, so he/she can afford more stuff. They likely have a more social circle too, if that's what you care about, Since most casual jobs at places like supermarkets and fast food establishments are a great place for meeting new friends, the biggest friendship circles in my area during high school were formed because they all worked at McDonald's. Person 5 is like person 4, but they can also spit some facts on the stock market and make some extra coin with a few trades here and there. It also makes for good conversation topics. I've been asked at work about central banks raising rates and where I think rates are headed several times. Maybe you don't give a flying fuck about this. That's fine, but I doubt you'd lose any points in the eyes of women for understanding the financial system. Person 6, aka me, ideally when I'm 35, has many stats up. Maybe your career is better than mine, maybe your physique is better than mine, maybe your business is better than mine, maybe you have more money than me, but I doubt you're better at everything than I am. If you are, DM me, we should bounce ideas off each other. Also note, this is when you're 35. Right now I don't have much to show in terms of my brand or the financial markets. Like, I get the main gist of the stock market and whatnot, but there's still a lot more to learn. My career is obviously early on, but naturally that grows as you spend more years working, which you need to do to support yourself. Some people don't actually care about this, since it's when you're 35. Who cares when you're 35? Well, a lot of people actually. Men peak later in life, as I've seen online time and time again, providing you put in work of course. Maybe you don't give a shit about being person 6 and you're content with being person number 2, for example. Nothing wrong with this, but again, this goes back to the whole toxic hustle culture thing. Is it necessary to be person 6? Or even person 4? Hell no. Most people would be more than happy being person 3. Literally nothing wrong with this, but you can't then turn around in your 30s and then complain that people like me have more money, or we have more going for ourselves with our postgraduate study, investing, business, etc., since we put in the work early. And again, maybe you don't care about knowing the financial system, having advanced education, having a business, but there's two sides to each scenario. We will now move on to what you may think of yourself. Person 1 is living their best life. They have a stable source of income that allows them to afford to get by. They don't care about being ripped. They don't want that high-paying, high-stress job. They like their predictable work hours. They aren't fussed about the stock market. To their credit, the stock market is pretty rigged. And they don't care about having entrepreneur in their social media bios. Person 2 is like person 1, but they have a decent rig on them, and they're also healthier overall, which saves heaps of money down the track on medical fees, depending on what country you live in. Person 3 is like person 2, but they're on the more prestigious roles at their job. They can talk about their body and job title more proudly than the other two. Maybe you couldn't care less about this, that's fine, but you can't deny that person 3 gets more respect than person 1. A senior executive with big biceps is naturally going to be looked at more favourably than the junior with a gut. Person 4 is like person 3, but they have extra income due to a second job. Now, I'm assuming the second job on the weekends is more chilled out and more social than your main job. It may be different for you. Like, I'm 26 and I get along with the late teens / early 20s people just fine. It's a fun time at work. I just assume this is the same, as most casual employment jobs I know of are more on the fun side. Like, you tend to have more people to work with, hence you are more likely to find someone you get along with. If you don't have such a job, or can't find one in your area, maybe instead of thinking about the social aspect of job 2, maybe you're thinking, yes, extra money this weekend. Now I can afford that collector's item I've always wanted, for example. Or maybe after a few weekends of work, you can afford a small getaway the weekend after without having to dig into your salaried income. I don't know, again, just rough perspectives. Person 5 is like person 4, but they can make a quick buck, or lose a quick buck, with some swing tradings on stock moves here and there. Plus, they can be the guy that most people go to when asking for why the markets have moved in the way that they did. Again, naturally they'd have more respect. If you don't give a shit about this, that's totally okay. Again, all different perspectives, and whether you think this is important enough to spend the time in your 20s learning this stuff is up to you. Person 6, aka me, is person 5 but with the added bonus of having a brand / business. I prefer calling it a brand, but either way, it's another stat increase that the others don't have. So here is a rough side-by-side comparison between person 1 and person 6 at the age of 35. If you think being the person on the right is something you want, start putting in the effort now. If you literally could not give less of a shit about being the guy on the right, then just live your best life in your 20s now. The reason my quote lowest level person still has a career is because I firmly believe this is the most important thing to have. You need a stable income source that offers pay rises as you progress. A regular job won't give you the pay rises required to keep up with the cost of living increases, which is why this is a career, not a job. If you think you can get away with less, maybe working 15 hours a week at a regular job instead of the minimum 40-ish hours a week for a career, that's your choice, but I strongly caution against this. When you fall way behind on your mortgage repayments, get evicted since you can't afford rent, or can't even get into your own place due to your income levels at all, you'll then realize why I advocate for a career. You can also swap these around. Example, instead of having a career and gym, like person 2, maybe you have a career and a business. It's all a switcheroo with your priorities, but I didn't go over every scenario as I don't want to be making another hour-long video. Now we have person 2 versus person 6. Most people consider person 2 a catch, which they very well are. If you're content with this, perfect. If you want to grind more in your 20s to be person 6 when you're 35, perfect. Your choice. No wrong choices, but the extra effort in your earlier years does show more dividends. But again, maybe you don't care about being person 6. It might not matter to you, and I assure you it doesn't matter to most people. But if you want to be person 6, then you might need to put the effort in earlier on. Person 3 versus person 6, now we're getting pretty even Steven. Both in shape, both with prestigious roles, not bad. Person 4 versus person 6, income levels very close, fancy job titles and in shape, pretty good for a 35-year-old. Person 5 versus person 6, almost the same person. Person 5 had more leisure activities earlier in their years, however. So, now I'm going to recap. Your life can be great as person 1. It may take you a little longer to get your own place, but there's no shame in this whatsoever. My accountant brain just tells me the sooner the better. But maybe you have different goals in life. I have a fair few friends on Snapchat posting their getaways to South Australia, driving along the white sandy beaches in their massive utes, just camping alongside the beach with their squad enjoying a beverage. Now, they're living their best life, but the opportunity cost is maybe a YouTube video or 2 for their online brand, a study session for their postgraduate study, a few shifts at their second job, a lot of money spent on fuel getting there as well. Who made the right choice here? It literally doesn't matter. There is no right choice. To each their own. My car is pretty cheap on fuel, all things considered. It's not a super small car. I could have gotten one of those, but no one looks at my car and goes, oh yeah, he drives a beat up old thing. Like, it's decent / good enough to avoid this kind of scrutiny. Maybe you don't care about what people say about your car if it saves you a heap of money on fuel. I don't either, but I just like this car and how it felt. If I'm going to be spending several hours a week in this thing driving to work, I may as well actually like it. Providing it doesn't break the bank with maintenance, costs and fuel, of course. In fact, my car, as far as I'm aware, is one of the longest lasting types of cars out there, so that'll save me money on buying a new car quicker than necessary, as well as lower maintenance costs and fuel. I could learn how to service a car myself, but that time is better spent studying for CPA, working my second job, or working on my brand, for example. Like, there's no point quitting my supermarket gig, aka turning down $30,000 a year just to learn how to fix my car and save myself maybe $1,000 a year on mechanic fees. You could argue, well, then you'd be able to fix cars yourself, and you could get business. Well, yes, but why would they go to me as opposed to an official mechanic? And again, as mentioned in the Hamza investment video, that would be a business. That's not as stable as a supermarket employment gig, which is a better move for my real estate purchase right now, but I digress. We all have our own paths / desires in life. I don't actually want to hang out with my friends every single week, as nice as that is. That's like a once a month / once every 2 months type of event for me. I actually enjoy being home and working on my brand, or chucking on video game soundtrack music and potting away at my studies, or going to the gym. That's one critical factor to consider with all of this. I actually enjoy the other aspects of my grind. It just so happens that these hobbies I enjoy will drastically enhance my life later down the track. At least I hope so. Admittedly, some days I feel overwhelmed, as mentioned in my first man reaction video, but that's more so a combination of bad sleep, work, and gym. Like, that happens with everyone. Everyone has shit sleep here and there. You wake up and you can't get back to sleep. It happens. Work is extra draining for some reason, and you really need to grind out a gym session, which makes the situation worse by the time you get home. It doesn't really have much to do with the investment learning or online brand stuff. In fact, if I have a bad sleep and I'm really exhausted, I'll actually skip a lot of the investment videos for the day. I'll just try again tomorrow, since if my brain is too fried from a lack of sleep, there's no way I'll be able to absorb any of the information coming into my brain. My new schedule of working 1 to 10 on Sundays instead of 7 or 4 costs me around $1,200 a year, as in I have a $1,200 pay cut because I don't work the penalty hours before 9 a.m. But I get a sleep in every Sunday, instead of waiting for a day off to get a sleep in. This is making a world of difference. Yeah, my Mondays are now a little more rough, but they were always rough anyway. This trade-off is worth it for me, but I'll go over more about me in another video. What I want to leave you with is, it's okay if you're not hustling 24/7. You don't have to do this to have a good life. But for me, personally, I enjoy what I do. I like my career. Accounting isn't the highest paying career out there. It's not the most stable, but it's a very, very good combination of the two. It's up there as one of the most stable careers and it pays well enough. But most importantly, I enjoy it. Yes, you engineers and you lawyers will out-earn me, but I don't want your job, as I'm sure you don't want mine. Also, it's not like being an accountant means you're a failure, not by a long stretch. There's lots of good careers out there. So anyway, I really enjoy my 9 to 5. I enjoy going to the gym. This is something you learn to enjoy as you go along. Once you see progress, it becomes an addiction. Make your workouts fun, even if they're not the most optimal. I literally don't barbell bench, barbell squat, or barbell deadlift in my current routine at the moment. At no point in my lifting journey have I ever ditched all three of these at the same time. And this is the most fun I've had working out in years. Whether this is optimal or not is another video topic in itself. Long story short, there's pros and cons of ditching these, but regardless, I enjoy gym, a factor that eats up my quote, free time. I enjoy study, but even then it's kinda necessary. I would love to be CFO, senior accountant, accounts manager, management accountant, maybe even a C-suite executive one day. All fancy job titles that are achievable with my career and studies. Maybe your title is senior engineer, head lawyer, principal, chief nurse, maintenance electrician. I don't know, it's not my job title. But it's all still prestigious nonetheless. Case in point, I enjoy study, but I could still have a nice successful career without my CPA designation and just my base level bachelor's degree. I like sussing the stock market. I enjoy learning about this and making nice swing trades. I enjoy having educated conversations with my one friend, yes, I only have one, who actually understands this stuff too. It's not a chore for me. I enjoy my second job. I've called it a borderline social event on this channel before. And again, accountant brain, time value of money. Yes, this job isn't scalable. Working on a business provides greater returns in the future. So why am I working this lower paying role now? Stability, time value of money, for my real estate, various reasons I've mentioned before. Plus, as I said, I actually like this job. It's my main social life in a way. The current time value of money versus the long-term scalable growth of an income is a balancing act, which is also why I have this brand here, which, with the other aspects of my life, I enjoy. I enjoy making these videos, making social media posts, growing a brand. It's all fun to me. If you took all this time I spent on this brand away and substituted it with video games, my career, my body, my bank account would all be just as good. Maybe a little better? CPA doesn't give you extra points for good grades unless you're cream of the crop, but I'd go mad studying 30 plus hours a week. As long as I pass, it's enough. Employees in my profession don't give a shit about your grades. as they know most people have a life outside of work and study. And my bank account would be a little higher since I wouldn't have spent money on this brand, but who cares? I enjoy this. It just so happens that this could, hopefully, make my life better in the long run. All that time on video games is only going to level up stats that aren't in the real world. You could argue if you stream video games, this is growing a brand, best of both worlds. This can be a good idea, but I'd prefer my brand to be the way it is. But we're starting to get into too many hypotheticals here. My point is, I enjoy everything I do. Yes, my schedule looks jam-packed, but none of these things are chores. Maybe you hate financial markets, you hate working on a side hustle, you hate studying, the thought of a job on the weekends makes you sick, you hate gym, so this schedule looks like hell to you. But to me, this is a nice mix of everything. No one task overstays its welcome for the week. If I gymmed 7 days a week, or if I spent 7 days in an office, or if I spent 7 days in a supermarket, or if I spent 7 days studying, or I spent every minute of every day listening to stock market stuff, or if I spent every day making YouTube videos, I would go absolutely ballistic. The fact is, it's all a nice mix of everything and nothing gets stale, which is great, which helps me keep going in all areas. Don't compare your schedule to mine. This is what I enjoy. Yes, I did learn to like most of this stuff. I didn't start out liking any of these things straight away, but that's a story for another day. You do what you like. If you don't like working on a brand, working a second job, whatever, don't do it. Enjoy your life. But you need to consider the long-term implications of these decisions. This kind of work will pay off later in life, but you don't have to achieve these things. You can have a great life without all of this shit. If you really want to have a more diversified life later on, learn to enjoy this stuff. Treat it like a video game. Slowly weave your way into these things. Don't overwork yourself. It's okay to take some downtime here and there. The choice is yours. I'm just an example of the hustle culture. If you think I'm doing too much, that's your opinion, and I respect that. You don't have to copy me or learn from me. But if you do want to put in the extra work to get an enhanced life later on, take a few lessons from me and implement it into your game of life. Hopefully, this provides some perspective on this whole hustle culture thing. What are your thoughts on the hustle culture? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for your time. That is all.